Hackers relentlessly probe for holes in big companies' firewalls to then grab and sell your data, including your social security number. What should be your top strategy for preventing the bad guys from using that data to steal from you? Is it A, set up a fraud alert, B, freeze your credit, or C, send the IRS an identity theft affidavit? Stay tuned to find out the answer to that and more right now on the Retirement Lifestyle Show.
Welcome to the Retirement Lifestyle Show. I'm your co-host, Roshan Loungani, here as always with Adrian Nicholson and Erik Olson. Guys, you ready for another great episode?
Yeah, absolutely. Always fun to hang out with you guys and shoot the breeze a bit.
Yep,
Yes.
I'm ready to go. Always looking forward to it.
Yeah, Adrian, you got to be getting excited for this Super Bowl. Your Rams getting ready to play.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Super Bowl this Sunday. My university is having homecoming this Saturday as well. Valentine's Day on Monday. So it's looking like a very busy next couple of days. So I'm really looking forward to it. So everything's all good on my end. So I'm really excited, just preparing myself for everything that's coming my way.
That's great. Erik, how about you? Anything new, different, interesting going on?
Yeah, what's new and interesting is today's my wife's birthday. Monday is my daughter's birthday, so it's one of those instances where I get to prove once again how inadept I am at thinking ahead, and so I have to scramble at the last minute and ask for help to get ready for birthdays. That's always a good thing. I think marriage is a fantastic thing for keeping you humble and building your character.
Well, if she doesn't listen to this episode, she may not know you're not prepared.
Yeah, well, she kind of does know.
No miracles coming from you on the planning side.
No, I couldn't pull the rabbit out of the hat this time, so not good.
And you said your daughter's birthday is Monday, so she's born on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah.
So, anyway, how about you?
Not too much. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl.
Mm.
But not too much going on with all these Valentine's Day reminders. Thanks to you and Adrian, I guess I better get on to planning something or doing
Maybe.
something.
Hey, you know what? None of us mentioned anything about the Winter Olympics, though.
I have not watched a second of it, and if it wasn't for random news stories that come up, I wouldn't even know it was all going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How about both of you?
Haven't watched a moment. I'm not proud of that, nor am I embarrassed about that. I just haven't watched a moment. It's not on my radar screen at all.
Yeah, I've been on the same boat, but I've been watching a few kind of events. I like the snowboarding. That's interesting. I got into curling a little bit, but I have to admit, when everybody said they enjoyed curling, I thought that meant weightlifting. So I was very confused how everybody is all for like curling. And one of my friends described curling as cornhole on ice. And I was like, all right, I'm thinking of a different thing. I kind of made sense like, oh, curling, I guess that's a winter sport because people can't go out because it's cold. So they're in the gym just curling weights. But no, it's just on ice kind of cornhole, so to speak, where you're pushing like a puck, like this round thing and trying to get into a circle and try and move other people off. So I started watching that a little bit. But other than that, it's been kind of just something I've just been putting on in the background.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about curling, but if I put that on, I can't change the channel either.
Well, someone described it. It's like one of those sports where it's not just based on, how physically fit you are, but it's also kind of a science to it. You have to be able to see the trajectory of where you're pushing the puck to move one out. So it's like brains and bronze.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I played that actually one time at a club outside of the city of Chicago, and it was actually a ton of fun. It was just as you said it. You had to sort of think very strategically. It was physics primarily with thinking and strategy and such like that. So it was fun.
And do either of you, have you heard of or do you remember the Miracle on Ice from 2018?
Oh gosh.
No?
No.
Sounds familiar.
No. So this was a team that a guy that got cut from the curling team went and got a bunch of other people that got cut, and they formed their own curling team, and they went to the Olympics in 2018 and won gold.
Seriously, which country was willing to sponsor them after they hadn't made the team in their own countries?
No, I think they played for the U.S. I'd need to look back into this story since I don't remember exactly how it went. So they were still a U.S. team, but they must have got cut from the official. I'm looking this up. The USA Curling started something called the High Performance Program, and he got cut from it with a bunch of other players, and created their own team, and then they must have qualified for the U.S. to get in and win.
Wow, interesting.
So I'm waiting for that movie.
Yeah, so for those of our listeners that didn't get the reference, and I'm sure most of our listeners did, but the Miracle on Ice was the 1980 Olympics, Winter Olympics, in the contest between the U.S. and the Soviet Union for a hockey match, in which the U.S. surprisingly won.
Yes, and then in 2018, the curlers took it and claimed it as their own, kind of.
Curl on ice. I love
yes.
it.
Yeah, well, let's jump into our topic since everyone else who's not watching the Olympics like we aren't, except for Adrian, is probably bored right now. So I think we have a really interesting one today. We're going to talk about freezing your credit, and let me tell you a little bit about how we got on this topic. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, my bank has this thing where they have your credit scores. You can click on it, and every so often, a few times a year, I'll click on it and look at it. It's on their app, and when I clicked on it this time, I had a bunch of alerts, and it said that my social security number was compromised on the dark web. So then I'm in a little bit of a panic. Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh, and coincidentally, I got an email from an Australian company with an invoice for a purchase of it was like $2,000 or $3,000 worth of cookware. So yeah, so the first thing I did was I looked at all my credit cards. I only have 2 or 3, and I looked at all of them. No charges from Australia, no charges I couldn't identify, nothing strange there. So then I go to the credit report site, the government's credit report site. I believe it's annualcreditreport.com. And I went and pulled my credit report, and nothing had been pulled. Like nobody applied for a loan. There were no credit cards or anything like that. So then I was thinking, well, what's the next step to make sure I'm safe? And that's when I went on to freezing my credit. I'd heard about it for years. I have clients that do it religiously. They freeze their credit, and I thought, well, it seems like it's time for me to do the same with what's going on. It also, I think, is a great topic for today as to how you do it, the pros and cons of freezing your credit, what it is, and how it works. And gentlemen, we can jump right in unless you have anything to add as an introduction.
Yeah, I think that's a really good story to kind of show where we're headed in this episode. And I think one of the major things to just point out is how more and more people, like as time goes on, are having their personal information just all over on different websites they shop at, just opening up new accounts, wherever it is, where people have access, or these like cyber criminals or these people that are hunting for your information online are now have like this plethora of ways to get your information, because so many people now with technology are putting their information on their web, have all these different accounts, where now freezing your credit is kind of a proactive way to prevent yourself from getting scammed or people opening up accounts in your name. So I think it's a conversation and what people are looking at more and more as these attacks are becoming more frequent. And you're hearing about just how millions, almost billions of dollars are being just stolen every year or being created in these fake accounts because people aren't proactively taking the steps they can take to prevent this from happening.
Agreed. And I don't know if any of you have been a part of these multiple data breaches that seem to happen all the time now. The Social Security Administration, I believe it. Well, I'm sorry, IRS got hit not too long ago, if I remember correctly. And I know years ago, my health insurance provider got hit, and I can't. There were 2 or 3 of these where, in response, they're like, "Oh, we'll give you a free year of credit monitoring." And I know I was a part of those in the past because I got that free year of credit monitoring. I imagine one of those things are what led to this whole dark web alert that I got. We should do an episode sometime on what the dark web actually is, because I really don't know too much about that either. I just know my social security number's floating on there right now.
And you brought up another one too, was the Equifax, and I believe it was in 2017, where everybody's like, if an institution like that is having issues, then you just have to think about it on a individual level, where you have to kind of set these defenses in place so you can protect yourself, where these large institutions are even vulnerable to these cyber attacks now. So that's also something you should just consider.
Yeah. So go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. Well, so what steps did you follow, Roshan?
Well, so for what a credit freeze is you go to the credit agencies and you freeze your credit so that nobody, including you, can apply for any credit, any forms of credit, car loan, credit card, mortgage, anything at all. It's all frozen, so they don't share your data with anyone, including legitimate sources you want them to. It does not negatively affect your credit score. What you've got to do is you've got to go to the 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And you've got to individually on all 3 log in, set up an account, and freeze your credit. When you log in, you will need to create a password. Make sure you save that password. It's probably not something you're going to log into frequently, so it's easy to lose. We have also discussed at some of our production meetings doing an episode on these password managers. So to protect yourself and make sure you don't lose passwords.
We'll have to come back to that.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to that. But so you've got to go through each of them. You log in online. Set up an account, log in, and you freeze your credit. The reason it's so important to store the passwords as it is for a lot of these things is if you ever decide to apply in the future, you're going to have to go to all 3 again and unfreeze your credit. So when you log in to all of them, they'll verify you using your social security number, and then they'll ask things from your credit report, like your address. You have a credit card with X company. It's multiple choice, so they'll list some companies. Who did you open credit with? If you got a car loan, they might ask you about that. So they'll pull information from your credit report that you will know to verify you. And this entire process of going into all 3 credit agencies to freeze credit, setting up accounts and so on, took less than a half hour, maybe about 15 minutes. So it wasn't very long. We will share a great article in our show notes. There's an article from NerdWallet. It's literally called How to Freeze Your Credit. It comes up pretty quickly if you do a Google search as well. And they walk you through all the 3 steps. They actually mention 2 lesser known credit bureaus. One is Enovis. The other is the National Consumer Telecom and Utilities Exchange. I did the same thing with Enovis of freezing my credit. I could do it online. National Consumer Telecom and Utilities Exchange, though, they had required a form to be completed and filled out. And I must confess, I was too lazy to print and fill out this form. And it's a lesser known agency that's usually just for utilities and telecommunication. So I didn't bother with that one.
Well, I've done this before, and without going into the full history of it, I think that the big 3 at least have an agreement which could make it even easier for you, which is that it's in the past, at least, the way it was structured between the 3 of them was if you put that credit freeze with any one of them, then they would alert the other two to do the same. In your reading and in your process, Roshan, did you see the evidence of that still being in place, or has that been stopped now?
No, I saw no information on that at all. So I would assume it's been stopped
Okay.
if the instructions were to do it on all three. And once again, when I went to all three and did it, not one of them said, "Hey, we'll take care of the other two," or we communicate with them.
Then maybe I'm confusing the credit freeze with a fraud alert, which is a slightly different event, I guess. So I'll stand corrected on that one. There is another phase of this, though, which is in terms of the theft of your identity and the way in which the bad guys are using this, and that's to try to get your tax refund before you do. Have you heard about this?
I have one moment, though, before we move on, and you can elaborate. I just want to go back to fraud alert. And just explain what that is. And Eric, that does say you only need to do it with one. So a fraud alert is if you suspect fraud on your account, you can contact fraud alert, on your credit report. If you suspect fraud on your credit report, you can go into any one of the three and put on an alert, which makes it harder for someone to open credit. That alert will stay on your credit for a year. You'll have to go back in and renew it after a year. There's no cost to do it. You've only got to do it for one of the three, and they then communicate it to the other two.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that. So then in terms of the reading that you've done about this, and what's the, in practical effect, what does the fraud alert not do that the credit freeze does? Because I was under the impression, at least that in the fraud alert instance, that it made it without proactive confirmation from you that you wanted to, let's say, open a credit card or open a car loan or something like that. For that period where that alert was in force, someone couldn't do that unless you personally approved it proactively.
Yeah, so they describe it as a business needs to verify your identity before issuing new credit for the fraud alert. For a freeze, you or any criminal cannot get new credit, period, until you unfreeze your account.
Got it. Okay.
And when you go in to unfreeze it, by the way, I didn't check this with all three. I can't remember which one I checked it with, but I went in and just said, okay, what if I want to unfreeze it? They actually gave me the option to unfreeze it permanently or unfreeze it only for 30 days. That way, if you don't remember to go back on it, unfreezing it, you're automatically frozen again after.
Okay.
And when we talk about freezing your credit, it not only applies to new forms of credit, but I have a client that religiously keeps her credit frozen. Well, when I try to open a new account for her, they won't. Now, because the new account does what's called a soft credit check to verify. They make sure the name, address, and social security number all line up to the same individual. They can't get that confirmation while your credit's frozen either. So it not only will it limit, and I don't know if this applies to all banks, I imagine it would apply to all investment institutions, but it not only limits applying for credit, as I mentioned earlier, loans, credit cards, auto loan, mortgage, not only applies to that, but also, at least in some cases, to applying for new accounts, opening new accounts, I should say.
So you definitely need to plan ahead if there's somebody that does this on a constant basis. If you want to open up like whatever it is, a new account, and another credit card, a line of credit, whatever it is, you definitely have to kind of plan ahead if you're somebody that freezes it on a certain basis.
Yeah. The other thing is I'll know people who sometimes I wish I was better at this, but I'll know people who'll do things like they'll open a credit card, get a points, and they'll say, hey, I got all these promotional points and I got a free trip to wherever. I've got cash back rewards on my credit card, and I pretty much stick with it. I couldn't tell you the last time I applied for a new credit card. I think the last time I've used my credit to apply for anything was refinance in 2020. When rates dropped as much as they did. They're still pretty low, but if you're someone like me where you don't use your credit very often, it's probably an easy thing to do. If you're someone who's constantly applying for the next card to get the next best deal, it may be a little bit more difficult. But I imagine if you're that active with applying for credit, you'd probably know your password and be active enough to log in and unfreeze stuff along the way as well.
Sure.
The only other negative I found on applying for freezing your credit, I found a couple, and Forbes has a great article on this that we can share as well. But the three bullet points they point out as negatives is: one, it can't be guaranteed to be 100% effective. Two, they said you've got to go through each agency individually to freeze it and unfreeze it. So that's what I mentioned earlier about making sure you know your logins and passwords, keeping those secure, because you'll have to freeze it 3 times, and anytime you apply for credit, unfreeze it 3 times. And their final negative they had on here was, just as Adrian mentioned, planning ahead whenever applying for credit. Now, I don't see it on this article, but I saw one other negative when I was researching this. That negative was it may cause you to have higher insurance rates on things like auto, homeowners insurance, etc. The reason being is it's actually most states allow your insurance provider to review your credit to help determine insurance premiums. It's not all states, but it is the majority. And I know that I was looking this up in a conversation I had with a client that lives in Maryland. And in Maryland, you can't use credit for these rates, but in Virginia, you can. So I'm a little bit, I'm going to wait to see when my auto renewal comes in and so on, to see if I have any impact on my rate at the time. But as of right now, I still feel like with my dark web risk out there that it's worthwhile for me.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? I mean, the assumption that the same character or life circumstances that might lead you to be a poor credit risk means you might be a poor driving risk. That's interesting. Hey,
Yeah.
well, I was talking about the tax. Did you have more to say about that? Because I'll also talk about the tax issue as well.
No, please continue.
So, I don't know, probably everyone and their mother got one of these last year when the scam on collecting unemployment related to COVID was just so widespread. I was living in Illinois at the time, and the whichever agency, I can't remember now, within the state of Illinois issues unemployment checks and sends out essentially money on a card, kind of like the equivalent of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like an ATM card. It's just like a debit card, essentially. People were getting a hold of people's names and addresses and other things like this, filing the claim for unemployment, and then going ahead and getting these cards sent to them, and then going to people's mailboxes to try to grab these cards before the people who reside at that home or at that business recognized that the mail was there. And so they would plan ahead, try to have these things mailed to them every day, see if they could just kind of check the mail. So I was really fortunate. Someone got a hold of my Social Security number, applied for these unemployment benefits, but on the form made the mistake of listing the entity that was due these payments as my business, and checked an LLC, but used my personal Social Security number, which those two don't match. The LLC has its own employment ID number. And so that, as a result of that, fortunately, in the process of it being submitted, the state of Illinois caught that discrepancy, but not before having sent me a letter saying that they were reviewing my appeal or my application for these benefits, which I had never submitted in the first place. And that happened to me, and then wave upon wave of my clients started telling me that they were getting these unemployment fraud letters as well. So what I was advising clients to do, at least at that point, and now here we are in early February, and so you might want to consider doing this yourself, is you can go to the IRS website, and on the IRS website, they have a couple of places. So one is the Taxpayer Guide to Identity Theft, and it gives you a number of ideas and instructions there, including some publications on data security resources and such. There's also, in addition to that page, the Taxpayer Guide to Identity Theft. There's another one called Identity Theft Central, and so this walks through a variety of things, including that scam that I was talking about, the unemployment benefits scam. So what to do if your name was used to claim unemployment benefits you did not receive. So you can find both of those there. So what I did, and what I encourage some of my clients to do as well, was to submit this particular form. I'll just read you the form number. It's form 14039. 14039. If you're driving, don't write this down. We'll have links to this in the show notes. But it is the Department of the Treasury, IRS's identity theft affidavit. So if you think you received something of that nature that I just described, which indicated to me at least that someone had gotten a hold of my social, so then, or for whatever the catalyst is for your believing that might be true about you, go ahead and submit this identity theft affidavit. And what that will do is put, at least this is my understanding, is it'll tell the IRS, don't just issue this refund to some claimant willy-nilly. There has to be a process of validating who it is that's making this application. And now apparently they got swamped with these, because I would get a letter probably every quarter saying, hey, we're still working on it. We're still working on it. That's not too good. I would have hoped you would have set it up already, as opposed to quote unquote working on it. Nevertheless, that form is available. So, and then lastly, there is the Federal Trade Commission has a website as well that's on related to consumer information, and it goes into the detail. I imagine what augments what you had pointed out, Roshan, on the NerdWallet article that you referred to in the Forbes article. This goes into subject matter about credit freezes and fraud alerts and such, and how to go about doing that. But the taxpayer part was the part I really wanted to highlight, because it could be a quick thing where somebody applies for your refund, and who knows, then they get the check before you do. Now, last thing I'll say about this is if the IRS issues that check mistakenly, you're not out that money. But it just seems to me that in the spirit of trying to defeat these fraudsters and make that a less appealing thing for them to do, and to save everyone a lot of aggravation, this is a useful step to consider if you suspect that someone has indeed caught your identity, which, Roshan, you have. So I want to point you to that form.
Yeah, I will. I have that form up now that you referenced it, and I'm looking at the boxes, and it looks like my answer would be I don't know if someone used my information to file taxes, but I am a victim of identity theft.
Mm-hmm.
And fill this out and get it sent in.
Mm-hmm.
And you had said it'll take a few months, so I should get on this pretty quickly. This form I won't be too lazy to actually submit, as opposed to the that smaller credit bureau or credit reporting
on
agency.
Your phone bill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, gentlemen, as I mentioned, we will include the links to the articles. We will include a link to this form, as well as there's an FTC breakdown of the difference between freezes and fraud alerts. So we'll include all three of those links in the show notes. And we'd be happy to take questions. You know how to reach us via the website, retirementlifestyleshow.com. All of our social media is always linked to the in the bio or all the background information. So we're happy to answer any questions or any topic ideas. Gentlemen, do you have anything else to add on credit freezes, fraud alerts, anything at all?
Well, I have a little something. I'm using a play on word about fraud alerts, but that is that I want to point people to our episode next week, when we're going to be having a couple of guests, and we're going to be talking about, as as one of our listeners asked us to do, we're going to be talking about modern monetary theory. And I don't want to give away the show topic, but many people ask the question: how bad is it really to at a federal level to essentially print money and issue debt in order to finance spending? You've had the classic argument that it's terrible, and the other argument is no, it's no problem. And so we're going to hear a deep dive on that subject next week.
Yeah, I think Erik gave a little bit of a teaser for his attitude when he thought about it with Fraud Alert.
That's exactly right. I did.
But yes, that will be an interesting one. And as you mentioned, that topic came from a listener. We had a topic which was one of our popular episodes on options. That was another listener idea. I think we also, the one we did a couple years ago on emergency preparedness, I think that came from a listener. So we do take your thoughts and ideas seriously. Please, as I always tell you at the end, like, subscribe, tell your friends and family, reach out to us with questions and show ideas, because we will build one around your ideas. Gentlemen, I think this has been a very valuable episode because it's something people can take action on right away.
Yeah.
And for all of our listeners, I touched on it briefly a moment ago. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends and family. Check out our website, retirementlifestyleshow.com, and we'll be back next week with another great episode. Thank you for listening.